Years ago, during the Dark Ages, I made myself a pair of top 10 lists discussing the top 10 best and worst Yu-Gi-Oh! Number Xyz Monsters. To this day, I find that it was a pretty good couple of lists. I would agree with 95% of what I said in those videos. But one thing I didn't do was talk about the Chaos Monsters. That's right, the beefy, upgraded version of the number monsters. And people have been asking me, Memphis, when are you going to do a top 10 of those? Well, one thing that stopped me from doing that for so long is the fact that there's only 27 Chaos numbers. You know, it just feels weird doing a top 10 best, top 10 worst, top 7 meh Chaos numbers. So instead, today, we are going to be doing a tier list of all the Chaos number boys and girls and just talk about who's the best and who is the least of all of these upgraded numbers. Full disclosure before we begin, things like Chaos Xyz Barry and Hope, Utopia Lightning, and Utopia Barry, what's his face, Super Saiyan Man, they're not on this list because they're not strictly Chaos numbers. Utopia Lightning, he is a special number. There's a difference there. We're just talking about monsters that are C1 through 107 today, as well as 1,000, that guy too. C number 1, Numeron Chaos Gate Sunya, which can banish every monster on the field when it's summoned, and it can also do burn damage so long as the field spell sticks around. I'm going to put this one in decent tier. It's got nice removal. It's not really the whole idea of this card. This is a backup option for an OTK deck. Pretty nice thing. It does require the field spell to live, but who cares? It's a decent monster. Good removal for this modern age. A little bit of burn damage on the side. Stepping stone for bigger things. I'll call it a decent card. Number C5 Chaos Dragon, who can get 1,000 attack for material on him, can attack multiple monsters by detaching, and can also pay life points in order for you to attach materials from the graveyards or put cards back on top of the deck. I'm again going to put this guy in the decent category. He's got a decent effect. He is a little special. He came out years before his actual number, so he really inflicts his own number more than the number inflicts himself. But it's a nice card. You know, it does what it wants to do. It's not the most optimal choice, but it can disrupt your opponent's graveyard as well as recovering your own cards, so it's a decent option. It's a decent one. Chaos 6 Chronomaly Atlantis, which can attach all its materials as well as the number equipped to it in order to burn your opponent down to 100 life points. Trash tier. This guy is not a very good monster because it requires an opponent's number equipped to him to do his effect, and anything requiring your opponent to play specific cards in order for you to win is going to wind up just as good as Allies of Justice. Chaos number 9 Dyson Sphere, which attaches any monster it battles into as a material, can do burn damage for every material on it, and detach all of its materials to deal more burn damage. I'm going to call this guy simply amazing. It's actually a pretty nice monster. It's got really good removal, especially for nowadays, non-targeted, non-destruction, and stops the floating, as well as some burn damage. It's pretty damn amazing. I love this guy. He's pretty cool. I would make a whole deck around this guy if I had time for it. Number C15, Giant Hunter of the Gimmick Puppets, which can target and blow up a card and deal damage if it's a monster. Now this guy is an interesting one because he's not really good, but he's must-have if you're thinking about gimmick puppets. I'm going to put him in the pretty good category because he is spot removal with the added burn damage, and he's really required if you want to play some, gimmick puppets. C32 Shark Drake Vase has the ability that if you're losing the duel, you can detach materials in order to banish a card from your graveyard and reduce the attack of an opponent's monster to 0. I'm going to also put this guy in the decent category. He's decent for a number of reasons. One, he doesn't require a rank up spell to make. He's pretty good for that. He's easy to make. He's also got a fairly decent effect for just reducing the attack of your opponent's monsters, dealing some damage. It's a little tricky because you have to be losing the duel, but it's a comeback option if anything else. Number C39, Utopia Ray 5 can attach material while you're losing the duel to give himself a boost and reduce the attack of a monster by 1,000. Trash tier. Again, not a great monster. He used to be okay as a comeback option, but Utopias can do so much better nowadays. And this guy's effect is just so dated at this point, it's not worth talking about anymore than this. Number C39, Utopia Ray 5, which has the ability to recover Xyz when he battles, as well as some spot and burn destruction. This guy, not really worth it nowadays. He's got some nice effects to him, but Utopias have moved so far beyond him that they're never really going to need this guy ever again. He's got some okay-ish effects to him, but he's not really worth it no more. Number C39, Utopia Ray Victory, and thankfully, the last Utopia we need to talk about today, which has a pretty beefy effect. He stops spell traps from activating when he attacks, and he can negate the effect of the monster he battles, as well as gaining that monster's attack point. That boy, pretty good. He's a pretty good monster. He just stops your opponent from doing things. He stops your opponent's monster from doing things. Gains lots of attack points, so pretty solid monster. I would say he's a pretty solid monster. Utopia has other things nowadays, but back in the day, this guy, he was the victory boy. I mean, it's in his name. That's how you know it's a good effect. Number C40, Gimmick Puppet of the Dark Strings, which destroys all monsters with string counters and can add more string counters to your opponent's monsters. This one I'm going to put in the must-have category only because Gimmick Puppets literally need him to do anything whatsoever, because have you ever seen Gimmick Puppets do anything without this guy? No, because it's literally impossible to do. Number C43, the Manipulator of Souls, which allows tokens to do multi-attacks and spawns a token, so long as you use number 43 to make the darn thing. I'm going to put you in the pretty good category. I mean, it's got some interactions with, like, any deck that spawns tokens. Brave players, maybe? Who knows? But it's an interesting thing, you know? It requires a specific strategy to make the most use out of the darn thing. But I would say it's not that bad of a card. It's actually pretty interesting. Number C65, the King Over Fiend, which can attach materials to reduce the attack of a monster by 1,000. And if it has Djinn Buster as material, it prevents your opponent's monsters from using their effects. This guy is going into the not worth it category. You might think a floodgate like this is pretty good. However, it's literally just the Majesty guy who negates effects, but harder to make. Number C69, Heraldry Crust of Horror, nukes your opponent's board when they attack you, and can attach a material to target a basic seed, gain that monster's attack, and steal that monster's effect. Not even joking, I'm going to put this guy in the God tier category, people. That's actually a pretty nasty effect. Not only is it a field nuke, but if your opponent's playing any Exceed at all, this guy can steal that monster's attack and their name and their driver's license and their woman. They can steal everything that they own. Pretty nasty, dude. I would make whole, if you're playing Heraldic Beast, like, you're playing Turbo with this thing, because he is so nice. Very nice. Number C73, Abyss Super Splash, which is basically just giving all your monsters the ability of Honest to just gain attack if they battle into the opponent's monster. This guy I'm going to put in the Simply Amazing category. It's simply amazing that nobody plays this card, considering it's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good. I mean, you're giving any deck Honest. I mean, Sharks could play this if Shark players weren't so interested in the damn frog. You know, you could just put this thing into a Shark deck and just let all of your Sharks gain super huge attack. Sharks is a battle deck, and they don't play this thing. I am insulted. Number C80, Requiem in Berserk, can equip himself to an Exceed, give him a 2,000 boost and some protection, and on the board with Requiem as material can banish cards. Not really worth it. It's not a bad card by any means, but it's really not that worth it to go into a whole new Exceed just for a little bit of attack numbers on one monster when it's easier to do that with other things. Number C88, Gimmick Puppet of Disastrous Leo, can deal burn damage to the opponent, as well as having a built-in win condition if your opponent's life is low enough, and this guy has no materials on him. This guy, not really worth it. It's a nice little built-in win condition, which is easy to cheat out with things like Onigama Combo and things like that, but it's really just a do-more card in an archetype that really needed a different direction to go harder. Number C92, Harder Chaos Dragon, can't be beaten in battle. All times that your monsters do damage, you're gaining life points while this is on the board, and can negate all the effects of all cards your opponent controls without being interrupted by detaching one material. I'm going to put this guy in the pretty good category. That's a pretty nice effect. He gives all your monsters bonuses to being battling on the board, and he can blanket negate everything your opponent has. Sadly, it's not a quickie, but it makes up by making it so your opponent can't interrupt you in any means, so pretty damn nice card. Number C96 Dark Storm can be beaten in battle. All damage that you would take would also go to your opponent. And he can also gain the attack of the opposed monster that he's battling into by just attaching materials, but reduces that monster to 0. I want to put Dark Storm decent category. That's actually not a bad effect. It's not really worth going into that often, but it's not the worst thing in the world, so I'm going to put that in the decent category. It's at least something. Number C101 Silent Honor Dark, which can attach special summon monsters to it as material, and it revives himself when he gets destroyed so long as you have Silent Honor Arc in the grave. That is a must-have in any sort of deck that revolves around 101. Well, if you want to play some cheeky tech cards, let me tell you. Chaos 102 Arc Fiend Serif, if it would be destroyed, detaches material. If he detaches all of them, he does damage. And he can target a face-up monster for your opponents, negate its effects, and attack goes to 0. Not really worth it. I mean, there's better cards that do more or less the same thing as Serif here, but, you know, with less expended resources, so really not worth making. Number 103, Ragna Infinity, which can either play its turn, detach material, target a monster your opponent controls, do damage equal to the difference between its current and original attack, and then banish that monster. And much like 101, revive so long as you have 103 in the grave. I'm going to put that in the pretty good category. It's not a necessity sort of thing, but you could make a deck entirely around this thing and things like Burden of the Mighty, just to spot removal and interrupt your opponent over and over again. That's actually pretty nice, so I'm going to say that card pretty good. Number 104, Umber Horror Masquerade, which destroys a spell trap when he's special summoned by any means. And either player's turn, when a monster effect is activated on your opponent's field, you can attach material to negate that effect, ditch a card from your opponent's hand, and have their life point. That's a simply amazing if I've ever heard it. I mean, that's a pretty beefy effect for a 1 rank 5 monster. That's a big boy. You know, all those different effects just from the opponent playing one monster effect themselves is pretty nasty. Number C105, Battling Boxer Com Cestus has the effect of blowing up monsters by detaching material and doing some damage, when he beats monsters in battle. That's a must-have in Battling Boxers, has to be said. He's a pretty nasty boss monster. He doesn't do, like, blanket negates or omni negates or, like, field nukes or anything, but he sticks to the theme of beating up the opponent and dealing damage, so I'm all for that. So I'm going to say that's a must-have if you're playing Battling Box. Number C106, the Giant Red Hand. If he has Numbros material, then when your opponent activates a card or effect on the field, you can detach material from this card as a quick effect to negate the effects of all other face-up cards currently on the field until the end of the turn. So yeah, that's a pretty good effect, I have to say. I'm going to put that as simply amazing that there's a number like this. He doesn't even need 106 as a material to do things. It can be any Number Xyz monster. Any you can think of. Plus, he just negates everything on the board, except for, like, one card on the board. That's pretty good. Pretty damn good. Your opponent just happens to play something, negate everything else they've got. Number C107, Neo Galaxy Tachyon Dragon, aka the original King Ghidorah of Yugioh, which can detach materials to negate the effects of all other face-up cards on the field, and your opponent can't activate cards or effects on the field. And if he has 107, you can contribute 2 monsters to get free attacks. That got pretty good. He's a pretty good effect, nice big beat stick. The only other number that's as big as him is like Zombie Stein. You know, he does blanket negate everything as well, which is, you know, modern Yu-Gi-Oh! In a nutshell. Just don't let your opponent play the game. So, 107, I'd say he's a pretty good boy. Pretty good boy. Nice big beat stick that just allows you to do the beating interrupted. Number C1000, Numeronius, can detach materials to destroy a card on the field. At the end of the battle phase, he destroys as many other monsters on the field as possible and summons a monster from your opponent's grave to your field. And if he's destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can summon IC1000 from the extra deck. This guy, he's decent. He's a decent card. On his own, fairly decent. He's got a field nuke that steals your opponent's monsters. He has the ability to target and destroy cards on the opponent's field. That's not bad. He's a stepping stone for other things, but all in all, not a bad card. And finally, number 1C1000, Numeronius Numeronia, which when summoned by number C1000, it gains 100,000 attack points. Your opponent has to attack it, or they immediately lose the duel. And he can detach materials to negate attack on him once per turn. I'm going to put that boy in the not really worth it category. He's more of a win more sort of card. Not to say that you can't win with the darn thing, it's just that in a Numeron deck where you're trying to OTK your opponent, and you got things like Sunya to do burn damage, and Numeronius to do more field nukes, it's very unlikely that you're ever going to need this dude, and he has no protection of himself except from battle, which is kind of what you want to have your opponent do into this thing anyway, so kind of a weird dude. Kind of a weird dude. And that, everybody, will conclude the Yu-Gi-Oh! Chaos Numbers tier list. I think we got ourselves a nice little spread here. You get an idea of how the numerons work, and the numbers, and all that good stuff, and you know, I think the list looks pretty good. Let me know what you think of those lists in the comments below. I always welcome input of the sort. Do you think I picked right? Did I pick wrong? Where would you put some of these numbers differently? I always like to know. So, thank you all very much for watching. Your boy Memphis is signing out now. I'll see you guys again next time with more Yu-Gi-Oh! Action. And maybe we'll do another tier list in the future. Who knows? But for now, I'm signing out. You take care. I'll see you next time.